Alright, so it's that time of the month again. We're going to be doing the monthly Q&A. If you ever have a question you want answered in a video, be sure to leave it in this month's comment section for this video, or any comment section. If it's good enough, I'll end up saving it. And even if you ask a question and you're like, oh shit, he didn't answer it, sometimes I do save questions for months later if I have enough of them, so keep that in mind. It's possible I will drop it in another one. Alright, so this first one comes from Twitter. Does reviewing anime able to be translated into real life skills? How is it useful for you? And how deep does anime mean to you personally? Am I ever affiliated to a character/series so much that you have the urge to defend it? I mean, in terms of the first part of the question, I guess I would say social skills, like doing thousands of YouTube videos just naturally makes you a very good speaker. Articulate words and how I would phrase things, you just naturally get better, and so ultimately I'm just a very good communicator because I do this. In terms of like the urge to defend, not unless they come to my comment section. Like sometimes things could annoy me, right? If it's just like a very bad take in my point of view. But in terms of like, I don't actually give a shit if people hate Attack on Titan. It just annoys me if people would come to my comment section to paste a generic opinion with no substance to it. If they're just posting it on their own Twitter and stuff, I don't really give a shit. So, I mean, we all have our moments where, you know, we just kind of flip a switch and we're like, that's a really dumb comment, so it happens, but not often with me. My question for next month, don't know if this will make it into the video, well, to your surprise, it did. Do you ever have an edgy teenager phase where you thought shonen was trash and Elfen Lied was your favorite anime? Because I just got out of that phase last year. I mean, first things first, welcome to normalcy, and getting out of that phase is definitely not a good one. I didn't really watch anime in my teenage years outside of like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon from time to time, so not really, but I mean, everyone has that phase. It's just different for every person. For me, it was just like, you know, the early high school days of being like, emotions are not manly, you know, the typical shit you would hear. So anything with feelings and stuff, you know, I thought had to be explosions and guns and Call of Duty, stuff like that. But I mean, very quickly after experiencing a couple of things outside my comfort zone, I realized that's the dumbest opinion you can have. Everyone should try everything and figure out what they enjoy, rather than limiting themselves just because of society saying certain things are this way. That helped open up, you know, outside of that edgy teenager phase of feeling like whatever you say or do would cut the most sturdy of rocks in half, into finding yourself as a person and not being a miserable asshole. What's the dumbest hot take that has ever been commented towards me? Something so absurd and nonsensical that its stupidity lingers days afterwards. Hot takes for me, it's not in the way of like, I think it is for a lot of people who get up in arms about like people not liking their favorite thing. For me, it's just stuff that like, how could you be like that? Like in terms of this comment as an example, I clowned on someone with a very bad Spy Family take. And those are the types of stuff that really get to me, because I just think about how someone could get that up in arms about something fictional when there's so many real-world things where countries are being invaded and innocent people don't have clean drinking water, and they choose to get upset that a little girl saved a little boy in an anime, and, you know, that just is unacceptable to them. It's just the stuff that goes to that degree for me, or stuff that personally attacks me, not in the way of like, oh, you suck or this or that. Man, the mute tool exists. I don't give a shit. I move on with my life. I have a good paying job. I have a fiance. I'm doing well in life. I don't give a shit if some random nobody doesn't like me. The stuff that does get to me is when people criticize me for doing things that I'm not doing, like in the case of, oh, you spoiled me, and I'm like, bitch, are you serious? I sacrificed thousands of views so you're not spoiled, but I do it in an intelligent way that'll still hopefully get views. So like stuff like that definitely gets me, but you know, the hot takes in terms of like, oh, you know, popular thing someone says isn't good, I really don't give a shit. It's when they find a way to be so stupid that you think you just somehow outrage Twitter, which if you manage to do that, you're a special breed of stupid. So this next one, I'm going to censor the name just because I don't think this person's a horrible person. I just highly disagree with what it is. But basically, this was commented on my Black Summoner video, I think it was episode 3, and it was like, I don't want to be that guy that ruins people's fun, but I'm sick and tired of the way Japanese authors depict slavery in their stories. Cliches, a goody two-shoes protagonist saves the slave, most of the time a hot girl, from slavery and treats her well for the sole reason of saving her from slavery or being nice slave master. Blah blah blah. What's most sad is that young kids watch these types of shows that have slavery in their story, and I cannot imagine the message their brain gets and how it develops their outlook of slavery being it's okay being property or having property of an individual if you treat them well. This one to me, it's interesting, right? Because there's a lot of shit I don't like But I think the issue I have with this whole, like, drawing a moral line in the sand about slavery being bad, alongside the whole mod thing, you know, the won't anyone think of the children mod from The Simpsons and that whole meme, we have been so desensitized to violence in culture that we'll let kids watch humans get blown apart in shows like The Walking Dead or multiple movies. But we won't bring that up in this comment, but we'll bring up the idea that kids will want to be okay with slaves. First of which, it's not anime's job to parent kids. I understand a lot of kids get born into this world with shitty parents, and shit does happen, but that doesn't mean the rest of us have to suffer because someone didn't take care of that problem before it was born into the world. Ultimately, though, it's perfectly fine if this person doesn't like slavery. I think anyone who hates on someone for having a different opinion and moral values, that's wrong. The issue I have with comments like these is that in a show that has murder, that has death penalties, we don't bring up that. We don't bring up the fact that the main character in the show most likely is about to get someone killed because of a death penalty because of their crimes. We don't bring that up because kids can see murder, kids can see all these other things, but slavery is where we draw the line in the sand. It ain't reality. There's a ton of shit in anime that I don't like. As an example, I don't like Redo of Healer. It makes me uncomfortable. I really dislike that show. The reason I don't go on rampages and videos and Twitter about how bad Redo of Healer is it's opinion, right? Look at Harem in the Labyrinth of Another World this season. If I was to be someone who criticized Redo of Healer but then praised this one, there'd be a lot of arguments to be made that I'm a hypocrite. And that's why I kind of feel like this comment's a hypocrite. Because rather than saying anyone who watches Redo of Healer is going to grow up to be the worst degenerate who will treat women like shit, I understand that it's just a stupid revenge fantasy show and it doesn't actually represent the morals of a person. The same way of me liking Harem in the Labyrinth doesn't mean that I'm going to go buy a slave. The idea that yes, there's definitely topics in anime that little kids shouldn't read or watch. Hell, I wasn't allowed to make my own decisions about what I was allowed to watch and play and things like that until I was 14, right? You know, you definitely need right parental decisions. But the idea of drawing this moral line in the sand and then saying one thing's okay but another isn't, either it's all okay or nothing is. Like, we can't have this stigma of sex and violence cool, but once it gets into slavery, no, or show some titties but don't show death. Here's the thing, we all have different opinions of what's acceptable and that's okay, but comments like these, yeah, it should be just you. It should just be you having that thought, because rather than just expressing your distaste for slavery, you're drawing this like, won't someone think of the kids while trying to signify that this whole thing never should be talked about. There's a time when violence in video games used to be like, literally people thought politicians were gonna ban it because Call of Duty would turn people into a school shooter. Yeah, there's still some dumbass people who still try to do that, but it's laughed at because it's a stupid ass notion. You gotta get your head out of the sand when it comes to comments like these. There's stuff I dislike, but the difference is I'm not gonna say one's okay and another isn't. Either it's all okay or nothing is. That's basically how it is. How often does angry Brandon come out of the woodworks? Because even when you're clowning on shitty opinions or maybe frustrated by dumb people, you still seem to be chill. Is it because the camera's on, or is that just easy to stay calm no matter what? Basically me. The only difference between me on camera versus off camera, I'm not high energy, I guess is how I'd put it. Who you see is what you get. These are my feelings. I mean, the only thing that's exaggerated might be in titles just to get people to be enticed by the video, but this is all me. So in terms of not getting angry even when I clown on people, like look at the last comment, right? I wasn't really angry. I was expressing my frustration, but I wasn't, oh my God, I'm gonna make the most clickbait face and this is the worst opinion. No, life is too short. There's so many people who spend their days on Twitter and on YouTube and do all this stuff and just are outraged. We should be debating. We should constantly be discussing things that are different from our own opinion to grow and learn as people. But when people who spend their days just being mad, who get mad that you block them or mute them on Twitter because you don't want to deal with their shitty ass opinions because you're enjoying your life, like, that's the type of person I am. I don't give a shit about people disagreeing. I just move on with my day. And I think in terms of living your life in outrage, it's not healthy. Why am I going to waste my time getting too mad? I'd rather just spend time talking about shit I enjoy, or at the very least, counter things in a way that interests me at the very least. Any words for people who dream of making this their job? So in the case of YouTube, ultimately, it's luck. It's 99% luck, 1% skill. You might get real lucky and, you know, you're naturally skilled at the start and lucky and you just blow up all at once. But here's the thing, you can't aim for it to be your job. YouTube changes so much that there's no way to chase it as a guaranteed, this is the recipe to success. Make it as a hobby. That's what I did for many years, and I I wanted it to become a job eventually, but I understood that I needed to have my own full-time job while doing YouTube, and I made this to be like a diary of shit I enjoyed, and luckily it became a job. So ultimately, find your groove, find what you're skilled at with doing YouTube. You might not be skilled, that's an entirely possibility, but find what you enjoy doing at the very least, keep doing it, refine your skills, and hope for the best. It's mostly luck, the best answer, but that's honestly the truth, and anyone who claims to have the secret to success on YouTube is lying to your face and probably wants to profit off you. It is luck and a little bit of skill at the end of the day. Is there any anime moment that made you rage in anger? Like a moment with anime that made me rage in anger, because I just drop things if I don't like it, but the only thing that's ever made me like rage was kind of back in the edgy teen phase like I talked about in previous, where in video games I used to rage quit a lot, like when I was doing well or not doing well in multiplayer games. I don't give a shit. If I'm doing bad, like I might get frustrated and from time to time I might make an outburst. But in terms of being a rage quitter or just like, holy shit, you know, the controllers are getting smashed, that only happened when my hormones were weird at a teenager phase and my mom was apparently a whore in terms of Call of Duty voice chat. So not really anime, but there has been moments in video games, but I definitely outgrew that like most people should if they want to have a healthy lifestyle. How do you schedule your days? I don't mean to intrude and ask you about your schedule itself, I just mean the process of doing it. I mean, I'm just very scheduled in general. I've never needed to write things down. If I say I need to remember this a month from now, I'm going to remember it a month from now. So for me, it's always been rather easy. But ultimately, I think, depending on the type of person you are, if you have a fuzzy memory or you get lost easily, just write stuff down. I think with smartphones being the way they are, you get notices in your like little apps and stuff that can literally sound an alarm for you to do things. So you just have to figure out like how many hours in a day of free time do you have. I think too many people get lost in the everything needs to be done right here and now. And while I do like to start and finish things, I'm very efficient, so I can do that. But there's a lot of people who need to break things up into chunks because they get distracted easily. So ultimately, I think having a notice go off saying, hey, it's time for the next thing, just schedule it at the night or the beginning of the day and you'll probably be a lot better off. And that's it for this video. Let me know if you have any questions, like I said, and we'll see you next time on the Q&A. So leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.